Hey, I'm part of the Linkin Park focus group. Is this a new metal Codmaster 91?
Yeah, dude, come on in.
Great. So, like we discussed earlier, we sent you a copy of the new Linkin Park album, The Hunting Party, ahead of its release. Have you gotten a chance to give it a listen yet?
Yeah, it sucks.
Oh, well, why do you think that? The band, the synths, electronics, the lack of rapping and screams and heavy guitars, basically everything fans didn't like about the last couple albums. One would think that fans of the first couple albums would accept this kind of return form with open arms.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. There aren't nearly enough turntables, lyrics are way too mature for a blindly angsty guy like me, and not once did Chester tell someone to shut up when he's talking to them. I mean, how am I supposed to quote this stuff? It's all about politics and crap like that. And my passive-aggressive Facebook status is about my parents.
So, let me get this straight. When you say you want old Linkin Park back, you're not saying you just want that old metal element back with some little evolutions as a band, but that you literally want them to go into the studio and re-record Hybrid Theory.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go.
Awesome! Thanks, dude!
I hate this job. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Spin Reviews, and today I'm going to be talking about the new Linkin Park album, The Hunting Party.
Crawling in my skin, these words that... Wait. Vinyl? What, are they selling out to hipsters now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I spent more time on that sketch than I'm going to in this review. Yeah, and for those of you clicking in the first time, this is not my usual setup. I'm just kind of in a hurry because I'm on vacation. I was just really proud of that sketch, so I wanted to get that done. Anyway, Linkin Park, LA rap rock band who got big among the nu metal wave of the early 2000s, late 90s, I guess. And they have been easily the most consistently successful out of the little wave of bands since then. Now, I'm not going to bother giving you guys a history lesson just because chances are you know about Linkin Park if you clicked on this review. I mean, based on how immensely successful they've been over the last, 15 years or so. Pretty much making their name on the first couple albums, Hybrid Theory and Meteora, with their mix of hip-hop and hard rock and pop and just this whole hybrid of stuff. That's why they called the first album Hybrid Theory, which I feel like it's something a lot of people forget about considering that other attempts they've made on future albums like 1,000 Suns and Living Things to fuse more electronics into there, maybe some more like techno-y or dubstep-y or just more atmospheric elements in general have gotten some pretty mixed response, which I don't really think is warranted, frankly. I'm always a sucker for a band that manages to change things up every time around, and Linkin Park is, for the most part, a prime example of that. But just give a little album-by-album discography review for a little bit. Hybrid Theory is a great one, for sure. That's kind of the most highly held classic from what I've heard. And it is one of my favorites. Meteora, unpopular opinion, I know, but I feel like it's just kind of a lesser version of Hybrid Theory. Obviously, the singles are great, but I feel like there were a few more throwaway tracks on that one. Then Minutes to Midnight, it might be my least favorite from them. No, there aren't any albums from I actively dislike. It's just that it's the only album of theirs until one song on here, which I'll get into, where there are songs on it I just flat out dislike. Then 1,000 Suns, which is probably their most polarizing album to date, and I can definitely see why. It's very atmospheric, it's very synth electronic based, very little in the terms of distorted guitars and rapping and stuff. But I think they pulled it off pretty well. The only thing that I think kind of dragged it down is there are way too many interludes, and only a couple of them were really all that interesting. I feel like they could have pared that down to maybe 10, 11 tracks instead of the 15 they went with. And Living Things, to me, was just a great combination of everything on the first 4 albums into this sort of hodgepodge of stuff with these newer songs. I have to admit, I don't really love it as much now as I did back then, just because, some songs are a little simplified, some songs are a little disjointed, and I guess it's not really the substantial statement that the last 4 were, but yeah, I think they've had a consistently good discography, including this new one, The Hunting Party. Now, the first song to come from this was Guilty All the Same, featuring Rakim, and I don't see how anyone could have seen this song coming between the 1.5 minute introduction that sort of builds up in a way that I haven't really seen that much from them before, as well as the more thrashy riffs and just the overall just the aggression being brought back from those first couple albums, but with a much more of a new flair and way of just going for straightforward hard rock and even metal. I know people say, like, oh, the first couple albums, they're metal, but, I mean, there's kind of a slant on it, and I feel like they're not really as heavy as the nostalgics make it out to be. Maybe it's because I'm a little young to be nostalgic for those first couple albums, but yeah, they're not really the heavy metal odysseys that people make them out to be. They do tend to be kind of a punchline among metalheads. Whereas this album, to me, this is really the closest they've gone to just straight-up metal. Basically, in a nutshell, what they've done this album is just take that, I guess, overall sound of the first album, kind of take out the more dated elements, you know, like the turntables, and the more, like, angsty, corny, kind of cheesy lines. Admit, there were a few. And just kind of updated it for this time. How I'd like to think about it is, after Meteora, they were sort of at a fork in the road where they can go with their style, since nu metal is fading away. They could either go more electronic and experimental and just all over the place, which is what they ended up doing with albums like 1,000 Suns and to an extent Living Things, or just take that sound and just expand on that more hard rock kind of, and to some extent punk kind of sound, which I feel like for this one, they just went back that path and went up the next one, if that makes any sense. Not to mention that, like I kind of alluded to in the intro, the lyrics here are a bit more mature than on the first couple albums, where they were a bit more angsty. This one's a bit more politically driven, just a lot more focused, I think, than just sort of the blind, like, rage and anger and, you know, hating yourself kind of attitude of the first couple albums, as much as I like those. Just to single out a few of my favorites lyrically, Guilty All the Same is a big one for sure, mostly thanks to the Rakim verse, was just fantastic. Really taking down that sort of corporate, greedy, money-hungry mentality the government and big business owners have been in the last few decades or so. Obviously, it's not a super innovative take on it, but the way he does it, I think it really works. Same goes for War, which, as you can tell from the title, is an anti-war song. Pretty basic, but it really works, like, between that and the sort of Bad Religion-ish instrumentation and melodies. I could actually really easily picture Greg Graffin singing this and making it work. And also, Final Masquerade, which, along with another song here, which I'm going to get into later, is a sort of breakup kind of song from what I'm interpreting. Really taking it, like I've said before, kind of goes a more mature route, like not being super whiny or super catty and bitter, just being very, again, mature about it. Rebellion is one that also really stood out to me, as it's sort of probably one of the more self-aware songs for this kind of theme I've heard, with the chorus basically saying that, yeah, we're not the ones that go through the most of this strife and stuff, but it's still important to talk about it. I do kind of want to go over the two songs I'm not so much a fan of on this album. The first one being Until It's Gone, which is easily my least favorite on this. I'll put it like this. The song to me is New Divide plus Burn It Down minus everything interesting about either of those two songs. It just kind of feels like a bit of a radio grab to me, just kind of taking that same formula that brought Burn It Down to the top 40 and just kind of mimicking that with these really cliche lyrics, obviously from the title. It's just, don't know what you got until it's gone. Like, we never heard that before. And it just kind of feels paint by numbers to me. The other one is Drawbar with Tom Morello, probably the only guest spot that really let me down in this whole thing, which really is unfortunate, because out of the four here, Tom Morello is the one that I'm the most familiar with. With this instrumental, there wasn't really much in the way of unique guitar work or kind of a climactic ending, because it spends about half the time building up, like for like 1.5 minutes, but then there's just like 1 minute more where it just kind of fades into this like piano ballad thing, and it's very uneventful to me. Like, I feel like they could have done a lot more with it. But aside from those two little hiccups, I'm still really loving this album. I definitely call it one of my favorites from them. I really like the more hard rock and metal kind of direction, even though, like I said, I did really enjoy the more electronic and that kind of stuff they kind of toyed around with the last couple albums, but I feel like after Living Things, if they just kind of repeated that, then it would have just gotten boring. So I like they just made this total 180, I guess, into not so much a return to their original sound, but more of like going somewhat to their roots and just doing something different with it entirely. I've heard in interviews that Mike basically got the idea to make this album after hearing what's popular now in terms of rock and just not hearing the kind of attitude-filled, like, angsty, just straight-up rock that kind of appealed to him as a kid. And I don't really blame him. Like, as much as I like a lot of the pop stuff getting big nowadays, from that sort of like indie and folk rock kind of thing, we do need stuff like this in the charts, and I feel like it has been lacking in that the last maybe 5 years or so. So yeah, I'm going to give this an 84. Definite recommendation. Great album. Definitely recommended to people who were maybe a little alienated from the last couple albums of theirs. Trust me, if you were looking for that more heaviness element and then just kind of gave up on them because you weren't getting it, this will satisfy that for sure. If you're just looking for a carbon copy of Hybrid Theory and Meteora, well, you're screwed. But frankly, I think that's a good thing. So, what do you guys think about this album? Do you agree with what I had to say? Disagree? Have any feedback about the channel in general? Let me know in the comments down below. And I'm sorry for this sort of a few takes sort of thing. Trust me, like, if you've clicked on this video and it's the first video of mine you've seen, trust me, my other reviews are not like this. I usually script them word for word, but like I kind of said, I'm in a bit of a hurry now, so I had to sort of go a little more improv with this one. I'm sure it's around with anyone who might be interested. Like the Facebook page in the description for updates, commentaries, music news, and reviews of older albums, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Spin It Reviews. Hey, I'm with the Linkin Park focus group, or is this Super Codmaster 90? Hello, I'm Super Cod Player 1995, better than Linkin Park.